What's going on, everybody? Robbie Falk here. Talking Dawgs is back. Uh, the fluffy chair, I believe, is going to be retired. We've got some nice leather recliners in here now in the office. Where the office is starting to come together in here, and we're excited. But the chat will go on as usual. We will talk about Mississippi State sports heavily in here. We'll talk about the Egg Bowl tonight. We'll talk about the coaching search that's going on right now. A little bit of intel. It's really all over the place right now, but we'll talk about what we can on here as Zach Selman is hard at work trying to find a new head coach for Mississippi State. Very important hire for the Bulldogs coming up, and I think it's a hire that could be official in the next few days. I think that this thing's not going to linger deep in the next week, and if it does, I think you'll have a good idea that the coach could be somebody coaching a conference championship or something like that. I think that's a possibility with a lot of guys that are on the board. So we'll talk about a few of the candidates, what we're hearing on that, what's been reported so far, and kind of make sense of where things are right there. But one thing I think that a lot of people are kind of forgetting in the midst of this coaching search is you have an Egg Bowl coming up on Thursday night. It's kind of slipped my mind. I wrote a big article today on Know the Foe for Ole Miss, and it's kind of hard to believe that there's an Egg Bowl that's going to be played tomorrow night. So, I mean, that's a big game. I don't think it's going to determine the future for Mississippi State. There's still a lot of things that's going to happen with the Bulldogs. With their new coaching staff, and obviously not a whole lot can change with this coaching staff, whether they win or lose tomorrow. But it would be huge for Mississippi State moving into next season with their new coach to find a way to win that game. And it's a game you want to win. You want to beat Ole Miss every chance you get. You want to win back-to-back Egg Bowls. You have an opportunity to do that. You have an opportunity to ruin their possibility of winning 10 games in the regular season, which has only been done, I think, once by Lane Kiffin. So, it's a chance to damper the season for Ole Miss. It's a chance to get your second straight win in the series. It's a chance to get momentum. There's a ton of stuff that can come from this for Mississippi State, but it's going to be tough. A lot of people have asked me, Kobe Walker asking right here, first question, can Mississippi State win this game? I think they can, but a lot of things have to go their way. This is not a good matchup for the Bulldogs for what they've done offensively this year. Ole Miss is a team that kind of feeds off of pressure. They lead the SEC in sacks and tackles for loss. They're top 15, I think, in the country, top 20 at least, in both of those categories in sacks and tackles for loss. So they're going to get after Will Rogers. Can he get the ball out quickly, and can Mississippi State have some big plays? Because this is a defense that can give up some big plays, especially in the vertical passing game. But can State hit those is the question. So the offensive line is going to be huge in this game. And also defensively for Mississippi State, can they get enough stops in this ball game is the big question. Ole Miss has a really good kicker that is going to connect on most of his kicks inside 40 yards. And it's a team that can get inside that range pretty easily. And when they get inside the red zone, they've been pretty automatic this year. So State's got to get off the field in this game. They got to force turnovers, got to have a good start. I don't think State is going to win this game, but I think it's possible. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. It never really is in this series. The last one that was just absolutely not possible, it seemed like, was 2008. And maybe 2018 as well. There's been very few games since this rivalry moved to the home stadium of each team. There's been very few games where you come in and you say neither team has a chance or one of the teams doesn't have a chance. So we'll see what happens in that one. But I think the thing that everybody is going to be more focused on at Mississippi State is what they're going to do with the head coaching position. And that is the topic of conversation on every Mississippi State message board right now. And I can tell you that I don't know if anybody outside of Zach Selman and his core group of people know for sure who is the top targets on the board, who are the finalists for this position, and who could potentially get hired. There's a lot of stuff being thrown around right now. I think a lot of it's coming from agents and people involved in the coaching industry and things like that. And you have to be really careful about the information that you receive and how it gets out, because there's so much stuff that gets thrown around that is a smoke screen, that is a straight up lie. It's really an interesting part of college athletics, is this coaching search that goes on, especially in college football. When you think about all the names that have been thrown out there in the past at all these different jobs, so and so is a done deal, so and so is on campus right now, and in reality, a lot of that's a smokescreen, or a lot of this is agent play to get more money for their coach. There's a lot of things you have to wade through to kind of find the answer. And at Mississippi State, it seems more often than not, it's a person that gets hired that hasn't even been a topic of conversation. Mike Leach's name was thrown around a little bit a day or two before he was hired at Mississippi State, but it was, kind of he's interested in getting the SEC. It would be an interesting guy. Mississippi State's talked to him. It was never really thought to be super serious until about, maybe 10 or so hours before he was actually hired. So I think you'll start to see some things surface within the national college football world when you start to narrow down those coaches. I think that's when you start to really see those names come into focus, when you start seeing that come from national names. We get a lot of names, and I do think a lot of these names that we're mentioning right now are guys that Mississippi State have talked to. I believe Mississippi State has talked to Willie Fritz from Tulane. I believe Mississippi State has had conversations with Jamie Chadwell, who I've been saying for the last few days, I just don't see Mississippi State landing him. I think he's a guy that can wait around a little bit and take a bigger job, a lot like Hugh Freeze did. And he's undefeated at Liberty. They have a good chance of getting into a New Year's Six bowl this year. He's probably going to get a raise, probably close to $5 million for a group of five coach that doesn't have to deal with the SEC and all that stuff. So right now, he could build a nice resume where he is and then make a jump to a big-time job in a year or so. And I think that's probably what's going on here with Jamie Chadwell. I do believe he's listening to Mississippi State. I do believe they've had conversations with him. I just don't foresee him coming to Mississippi State. That's a guy that has been definitely a possibility for the Bulldogs, or at least a guy that has been at the top of their list. Barry Odom has been a name prominently mentioned in the last few days. I believe Mississippi State has also talked to him and interviewed him. He's a possibility. A lot of these names that are popping up right now are not names that excite a lot of people. And I totally get that. I totally understand that point of view. I just want to caution you to don't just let this play out. Don't take all these names popping in and out as this is exactly who Mississippi State's looking at. This is the only names Mississippi State is looking at. I've seen these coaching searches too often to jump the gun and believe that it's just this group of people that's been mentioned. There's so many other names out there that are possibilities, or people that are under the radar that we're not talking about right now. And again, how many times have we discussed, I don't want Mississippi State to make a Joe Moorhead hire, but how many times did we discuss Joe Moorhead prior to him being hired? It didn't come along until later on in the process. So, we'll see how this plays out, and we'll obviously be following it over the next few days. All right, guys, as you know, you can drop your questions and comments in the box over there if you guys have some things you want to talk about. Kobe Walker, is Woody Marks going to be available? We'll see. Probably game time decision for him. He's been so banged up. If he can't go and he's not going to help you win, I just think you just need to let him rest. I mean, last week he was so hobbled. I just didn't think it helped Mississippi State to have him out there. And he's a guy that's going to fight through those injuries and run hard and play hard. But at the end of the day, if he's not able to go 100%, I don't know how that helps you. So, we'll see what happens there. See if he's able to go. I hate it for Woody that he has not been healthy this year, because when he was healthy this season, he looked like he was going to have an incredible year, over 1,000 yards rushing, one of the state's best years for running back in a while. And I just hate that it's happened this way for him, because he was having a great start to the year. Stringer Films, which bowl are we going to? Well, we'll see what happens. Stringer, you really don't think Mullen will retain Hughes, Turner, and Knox? Yeah, I don't think Mullen's coming, Stringer. I think we can hang that one up for now. Thomas McWilliams, hoping the guys come out with some fire and really get pumped up. But, man, Ole Miss looks pretty good. Yeah, just a solid team. I think that 2021 team for Ole Miss was better, but that team was playing against, in my opinion, a better SEC. I think Ole Miss has won the games they were supposed to win and won those borderline games. They lost to two really good teams, and they got a huge upset over LSU. This team's just really solid. They don't do a ton of things badly. They're, I think, really good on the offensive side of the ball. The scheme obviously is so good. And then defensively, they are okay. They're good enough that they can get stops, get you off the field. They can get interceptions and force fumbles. They're good enough that they're just not going to be a complete detriment to the team, where most of the time you're having to score 40 points to beat another team. They came up big against Tulane. That was a game they could have lost. Came up big in that game. I thought they came up big against Arkansas. LSU, they gave up a ton of yards and points, but they got stops in the fourth quarter. Texas A&M, they weren't great, but they got a stop there late in the ball game. So you look at the games, they've just been really solid. They've been solid in special teams. It's just a real sound football team. And when you're talking about upsets, you got to have a team make mistakes. You got to have a team that's not playing very sound. Ole Miss has got to deviate from what they usually do for Mississippi State to have success in this game, I think, because the Bulldogs are not sound. They're not sound on offense or defense. Haven't been good on either side of the ball. And Ole Miss can exploit a lot of what they do offensively and defensively. So you got to have Ole Miss play a game that's kind of out of their realm. They got to come in this kind of overlooking State or getting rattled somehow. That to me is the way State can win this game, and I just don't know if that's going to happen. JB, what are your thoughts on Lebby? I like Lebby. I'm looking at some of these names that are getting released, and if this is indeed Mississippi State's grouping here with Willie Fritz, Barry Odom, and guys like that, it's just not a very exciting group. It's not a group that I'm sitting here saying this is a coach that can take Mississippi State to the next level. If that's your group, I really feel like you'd be better off taking a chance on somebody that hasn't proven it yet, that hasn't been a head coach. I was of the opinion that Mississippi State should go after a sitting head coach, probably in the group of five area. Jamie Chadwell was my top guy. Rhett Lashley was another one of my top guys. But if it's some of these guys that are, they haven't really recruited at a high level, they haven't done anything spectacular. Barry Odom, here's what I'll say about Barry Odom. He was at Missouri, as you know, and was defensive coordinator. Then he was promoted to head coach, I believe. And they weren't terrible, but they weren't really exciting. They were kind of boring. He goes to Arkansas. I thought his defenses were okay there. But one thing I'll say is what he's doing at UNLV is not anything to sneeze at. I mean, that is an incredible job what he's done there. And I think that you have to give him credit for that. Now, does that mean it's going to translate to success if he comes to Mississippi State? No, it doesn't. But a UNLV team that has not had a winning season, let me be sure here. They have not had a winning season in 10 years. They went 7-6 in 2013. And it's a team that's averaging, you know, somewhere around 3 or 4 wins a year for the last decade. And he's won 9 games, has a chance to win 10 this week. And on top of that, go to a conference championship. That's not anything to, dismiss. That is a heck of a job. Now, like I said, I don't know if that's going to translate to him being successful in the SEC again, but he has been in the SEC. He has done a great job coaching this team this year and making a perennial loser at UNLV. No offense to those people, but this is a program that has never won. What he's done there has been amazing. Their best year ever in Division One was in 2000. They went 8-5, and they went to the Las Vegas Bowl. They have been to 3 bowl games ever in Division One, and the only other time in the program's history that they won 10 or more games was 1984 when they were playing in Division Two or whatever level that was on. So since they've been on this level, they've never won like this. And I'm not advocating for him, but I'm just being fair. I mean, the people that dismiss what he's done, you have to use context here and what UNLV is as a football program all time. I just can't dismiss it. I don't think this is a fluke. I think he's done a good job. I think he's a good coach. The question is, could he recruit in this age of SEC football to stay with the pack? I think his floor at Mississippi State would be averaging 6 to 7 wins. I think he's a good enough coach. He could coach Mississippi State up to where they would do what they have been doing, go into bowl games, things like that. But that's not where you want to be. You're trying to push further. I think he has a ceiling. I don't look at Barry Odom and think this is a guy that I think can compete in the SEC West or take Mississippi State up a notch or recruit in the top 20. I don't see that. He doesn't really move the needle for me in that regard. I do think the people saying the program's going to crumble, everything's going to fall apart, I think that's a little extreme, and people are saying that on him and a few other guys. I think he would be a fairly safe hire that isn't going to bring a whole lot of excitement. That's kind of where I am with Barry Odom. But I do think we have to give him his flowers for what he's done at UNLV this year, because I can't tell you how difficult it is. That winning 10 games there is like, Dan Mullen coming here and sending Mississippi State to a bowl every year. It had never been done before. Or getting Mississippi State to number 1 like that. That's the context here with UNLV. I mean, what he's done this year is amazing. Kobe, is there a possibility we can go to bowl with 5 wins? Yeah, there's a possibility with the APR thing. I mean, I don't like that much, but you have so many bowls at this point. Somebody's got to fill those spots, and in the SEC, you're not going to have Vanderbilt. You're not going to have Arkansas. You possibly not going to have South Carolina. I don't know what their APR situation is. So, there's a possibility that happens. There's a lot of people that get upset about that. I get it. But, I mean, what are we talking about here? State going to the Birmingham Bowl? Like, why does that get people so upset? Gino, you have a favorite out of the rumored coaching candidates. Out of the grouping right now that is being talked about, that have talked to Mississippi State or whatever, I guess maybe John Summerall. I know people are really turned off by him too, but I mean the guy is like 25-4 in 2 years at Troy, and I know it's a totally different job, and we haven't really seen him recruited at extremely high level since he's been head coach. But I mean, 24-4, 25-4, whatever he is, I mean, that's a heck of a record. So he's doing something right at Troy. He would probably be my guy to that group, just because we've seen Barry Odom in the SEC. He's an older guy. We've seen, Willie Fritz. I just don't. He's an older guy too. I just don't know with him. Summerall has coached in the SEC as assistant. He was a recruiting coordinator, I think, at Ole Miss. He was recruiting coordinator maybe at Kentucky. I can't remember. So, he's recruited before in the SEC, and he knows what it takes there. He's a defensive guy, so he would have to make a really good offensive hire. And I do always have concern with those group of five guys coming to the Power Five and in the SEC and what they would do there. But if you're asking me like who to pick out of Barry Odom, Willie Fritz, and Summerall, I would probably pick Summerall. But I would really like to see State go after a younger, energetic, offensive guy that's going to bring some juice, recruiting, and I just don't see a lot of guys on that board right now, which is why I say I still think that there's some people out there that we're not talking about. I think there's going to be somebody that's a dark horse, that's a wild card that we haven't spoken about that could come into focus here. I refuse to believe Zach Selman's narrowed it down to those guys. I can't believe that's the case. Mississippi State needs a guy that's going to bring some juice to this program in recruiting, offensively. They got to have somebody that's going to be able to do that. And with Selman being a guy that understands that whole landscape of NIL and recruiting, and he's a younger guy himself. He's been in charge of fundraising. He's been in a blue blood at Oklahoma. He has a lot of ties in college football. I have a hard time believing this is his group. I think he's doing a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't know about that's going unnoticed. And I think it wouldn't shock me if that stuff came to fruition after the fact, that he was working in silence in a lot of ways, and we didn't have the true list, or we didn't have the guys that were right there at the top for him. I still believe the guy that he hires is going to be somebody that we're not currently talking about. At least I hope. Sam Sharma guessing the two Kansas guys are out at this point. Yeah, I don't think they've ever been in the game with Chris Kleiman. Lance Leipold, I haven't heard a ton about him lately, but I do know he was a guy that Zach Selman was really interested in. That could be one of my dark horse guys to look out for. He could be a guy. We're not talking a lot about him right now. I still think that could be a guy that could play into this in the end. It's going to be tough because Kansas is going to pay him a lot of money. They're putting a lot of money into their football program. They've had a lot of success with him. And, I think he's a guy that is happy there. So it's going to take a huge commitment for him. So, we'll see what happens on that. But, yeah, that could be a guy to watch out for. Bryce Hall, do you know how close the NIL drive is to reaching the 1 million mark? They are close. As far as I know, they're about halfway. So still trying to get a big push over the next week or so. I mean, you beat Ole Miss, I think you could really make a push. But they've done a really good job. Charlie Winfield has done a really good job in a week's time raising a ton of money. About half of that already has been raised. Plus, if you get to 1 million, you got several donors that are going to match that. So you're going to be at 2 million just like that. That's going to be huge. Oh, let's see. Bryce, what coaches would you count as a bad hire? I don't know. The guys being mentioned right now, I don't know if they're particularly bad hires, just kind of boring hires, which, I guess you could say that would be a bad hire. I don't know how that would end. So I don't think those would be great hires by any means. I think they would be hires that would, it'd be really tough getting people fired up over those three guys that we've mentioned. But A bad hire would be like was mentioned, like Shane Beamer. I don't think Joe Judge would work in this landscape. Those are a couple guys that were mentioned initially. I never thought those guys were truly candidates, but that those definitely I think would. Random Yoda, how many of our players do you think will be drafted this year? Uh, I mean, I don't know. I think Bookie Watson will be drafted. We'll see on other guys. It's not a big year for talent coming out of MSU. Winston, I wish DJ was still in Starkville. He's having a good year. Talking about Dylan Johnson, I guess. Yeah, he is. Would have been nice to keep him. I like Dylan a lot. John White, Davis, and Pittman would be a heck of a 1-2 punch next year if they both stay. Pittman seems to get better. Yeah, I really like both of those guys. Pittman runs really hard. I've always liked him since he was at Taylorsville. I watched him in the state championship game a few years ago at Taylorsville, and I love Seth Davis. I think he's going to be a star here. Um, both should stay, but we'll see what happens. Tom T says Buki and Jet and Will last game. Got a weird feeling. Oh, Tom, don't do that to yourself now. Miss you, Bulldog fan. Did you see the pregame video of Coach Greg Knox in a four wheeler? I did. I shared that on Twitter the other day. It went viral. That thing had like over 1 million views. Pretty crazy. That's what I like about Greg Knox. He figured out a way to motivate this team, and they needed it badly. They needed a shot of adrenaline, and they got it. I think that's one thing that he does well is he handles these situations so well, stepping in at a delicate moment and kind of bringing some stability to the team. We saw it in 2017. He came in there when Dan Mullen left for Florida and helped really stabilize the team and get them ready for that bowl game. And then he did the same thing at Florida when Mullen was fired. Stepped in, won a game, I think, and did a good job there. And now he's doing it again here in even more unstable situation at State. He's just a great guy. He knows how to motivate. He knows how to bring some positivity. He's done a really good job in this role. J Mac seems like Choctaw wide receivers on campus a lot. Is he a state lean? Talking about Caleb Cunningham, 5-star wide receiver out of Choctaw County. I've been covering Caleb since he was in 8th grade playing basketball. Kid is an absolute freak. A great basketball player and just a natural wide receiver. I think he's going to be making a lot of money in the NFL one day. And yeah, I would give State the lean for him, especially if they make a good hire and they keep Chad Bumpus. I think they're in good shape. But you need a good offense in here. State needs a really exciting offense so badly. With whoever this coach is, even if it's a defensive guy coach, which I wouldn't be too thrilled about, you got to hire a great offensive coordinator that can come in and excite this fan base, give Mississippi State an exciting offense to run, and go from there. And I think that would be an easy sell for Caleb. He's a homebody. He's a guy that likes being around his family. His family's nearby. Ackerman is a really strong Mississippi State town. So, there's a lot of roots in Ackerman with Mississippi State and, 30 minutes away. So I do think State's in good shape with him, but you got to make a good hire here to kind of stabilize that and even more. C. Lee, I like Rhett Lashley. Just make sure he gets a real DC. Yeah, it's important to have two good coordinators, I think, whoever you hire. Winston, I think PJ Fleck could be an interesting option if he were interested. He seems like a fired up guy. Yeah, I just don't know if he would leave right now for Mississippi State. Justin Tidwell, Summerall is a home run hire, takes talent at State, Ole Miss, LSU, and the Raging Cajuns overlook and coaches them up. Look at the results he's getting. Yeah, I think he's a great coach. I mean, it's kind of like Barry Odom. Like, you can't deny that the guy's a good coach because of the results. You look at the results of what he's done so far, it's impressive. Let me pull up his resume. Um, the big question mark with Summerall is just the recruiting piece, which, like I said, I mean, he has recruited inside the SEC before. He was Ole Miss linebacker coach, which did a great job there, and ended up going to his alma mater at Kentucky and was the co-defensive coordinator there. So, he's done a solid job. Went 12-2 last year at Troy, which, a lot of people have said everybody wins at Troy. That's not true. Not everybody wins at Troy. They've had some good years, but you know when they got into the Sun Belt, they were 4-win team, 3-win team. They had a couple of 8-win seasons in there under Larry Blakeney, who, if you remember, they did beat Mississippi State in 2001 when they were transitioning to this level. But Chip Lindsey really struggled there before Summerall. Summerall took over a team that had won 5 games 3 years in a row, and he won 12 games in year one. Neil Brown did a really good job there, I know, but it's been Neil Brown and John Summerall. Those are the only two that have been super successful there. And Blakeney, like I said, he had 3 really good years and then kind of tailed off again. But 12-2 last year. This year, he's fighting for a conference championship again. I mean, again, out of the guys that have been mentioned, the guys that are left, Willie Fritz, or who people think are left, Willie Fritz, Barry Odom, and John Summerall, I would pick John Summerall. But hopefully there's some more options out there. He would need to make a really good offensive coordinator hire, I think. We need to be a really good, and he would need to put together a really good staff, which he has connections inside this conference, obviously playing at Kentucky and coaching there. But I know that he has some staff members that have really been pushing for this job. So we'll say he's talked to Mississippi State. I believe they interviewed earlier this week. Skyla Winders, I guess that's how you say that. I talked about the bowl chances earlier. I think they got a decent shot with the APR, but I don't really know if they're going to be willing to take it or not. I know he lost an OT this weekend on game day, but why no Kurt Signetti love? I like him. He's done a really good job at James Madison. Let's pull him up and talk about him a little bit. As a lot of you know, he coached under Nick Saban, a West Virginia guy as well. And he was, recruiting coordinator for Saban to start for when Saban started his tenure there and coach wide receivers. But, I don't really know about the recruiting piece. I mean, Alabama is what it is, but he's been really good just about everywhere he's been. And at James Madison, he's been exceptional. He's won 3 division championships, 4 division. He's about to win his 5th division championship, and he has won 3 conference titles already in 5 years. 51-9. Good coach. He's done a great job at James Madison. I wouldn't be opposed to him. I think he's done a really good job. Older guy. I know a lot of people are concerned with that age, 62. I mean, that's up there. 118-35 as a head coach, though. He's kind of he's very similar to me to Lance Leipold. He's just been a really good head coach. But Leipold is coaching the Power 5. That's what concerns me. Signetti is not. He has not been a head coach on this level. but he's done an outstanding job. I would definitely look at him. They can't be any worse than some of these other names that get thrown around. Winston, the family and I are going to make the drive up from Natchez tomorrow. How much will be open around town? All the all 15 Mexican restaurants should be open. Um, Umi, the Japanese. Somebody has said that Two Brothers was going to be open tomorrow. If that's the case, I would go there. Trying to think what I mean. Waffle House, obviously, but who knows? I think somebody had also mentioned Starkville Cafe might be open on Thanksgiving. I'm not sure. Ride around it and check it out. See what you see. Justin Summerall has a lot of connections in high schools in Mississippi. Wasn't he also coordinator at Ole Miss? He was linebackers coach at Ole Miss. Um, but I remember at the time a lot of people were upset that he left. They really liked him there at Ole Miss. They thought he was a rising star. I know he's got Taylor Polk on his staff, who was at Brandon and played at Ole Miss. Let's see who he has at his disposal, his coaching staff. Taylor Polk is there, who's a guy that's kind of rising up the ranks too. For Troy as a defensive guy. But yeah, he does have some connections. I mean, he built some connections here in the state. Well respected guy. Has really done some great things at Troy. When you really kind of break down his career there in just 2 years, I mean, 10+ win seasons. Yeah, there's Taylor Polk in there. Trying to see if there's another Mississippi connection in here. Some guys that could potentially be fit at state. Taylor Polk is already a co-defensive coordinator, by the way, at Troy. He's done an outstanding job. I remember him in high school was a fun guy to watch. I think he's the only Mississippi guy. His OC is Joe Craddock, who's done a good job too. Anyway. Scala says Signetti was the coach at IUP when he worked as a grad assistant and helped get the refs settled. Everyone loved him there. He seems like an awesome guy. I would definitely look into him. I mean, and surely State has with the job he's done at James Madison. They're moving up to FBS this year, so they're not able to play in a bowl game, which is a shame. Stringer says that he saw Urban Meyer at Dave's Dark Horse. Can neither confirm nor deny. He likes their deep dish, I hear. See, Lee, thoughts on Sean Lewis as a candidate? Doubt that is truly his offense as being at Colorado this year. He's a great coach. I wouldn't put him at head coach, I don't think. But I think he definitely has got the short end of the stick on this deal. I mean, they haven't been any better offensively since he got demoted. But he wasn't very good as a head coach at Kent State, so I'd be concerned with that. I do think he's a good coach, though, and it's a shame that he left a head coaching job basically, for Colorado and got demoted like that. He's done some good things in his career, though. Ratio thoughts on Dave Doran? Just it doesn't really move the needle either. Which I haven't heard anything. I know that went wild the other day with people thinking Dave Doran was the guy. I haven't heard anything of substance on him. So I don't know if he's really truly linked to this job, but I know that he was a guy that was heavily linked to the Ole Miss job back the last time it was open. Um, but I just don't know. He's done a solid job at NC State. I just don't think he would be a needle mover either. Justin Tidwell is Stonka completely out of the boat. I would say he's barely hanging in if he is, just because of the situation State's in. They got to get a guy hired and kind of get some juice back with him. They have a good relationship with him, but his dad's gotten really involved in his recruitment. His mom was really involved. It's now more of his dad kind of helping him out, and that's kind of changed some things, it seems. But it would, it's going to be State's going to have to fight hard to get him back, based on what I'm hearing. All right, anybody else before we head out of here? Got a big day tomorrow. Egg Bowl is at 6:30 on ESPN, but hopefully you guys will be in town. Might see you around. All right, guys, we'll call it quits. Hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. We'll be back on tomorrow after the game, probably to do a reaction video. If not, I might do it Friday, just because of what's going to be going on after the game. I'm going to probably get over to the studio and record with Hey Dad, I imagine. So we'll have a post game up pretty quickly after the game. So I'll do a reaction video probably Friday, I think. But again, thanks for joining as always. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. Stay tuned over on 247. We got coaching search updates coming in and out, and we'll have plenty of coverage from the game as well. Plus, what's coming up on the weekend, when I think the coaching search could really heat up. So stay tuned for that as well. And basketball is starting to pick up. We're about to go full bore into basketball. So 2 top 25 teams. It's going to be an exciting year, I think, there. All right, guys, have a great week, and have a great time tomorrow on your Thanksgiving, and hope to see you at the ball game. If not, happy Thanksgiving. Catch you down the road.